You're listening to Data Center Therapy. Please take a number, and an engineer will be right with you.
Welcome back, everyone, to Data Center Therapy, a podcast from Ivoxy Consulting that talks all things IT with a healthy dose of empathy. I'm your host, Matt. Why did that light turn on? Yeti. And alongside me is my co-host.
Matt, hey Google, play my intro, Cozzolino.
And hopefully they weren't listening to that. Each episode we dive into a wide range of technologies that make up this beautiful sandbox called IT that we all play in. We share our hopes and dreams, opinions both positive and critical alike, all with a touch of empathy. Because at the end of the day, especially these days, we all need a seat on that couch. We wanted to remind you that this upcoming Friday, May 1st, we will be having yet another laid-back conversation with you at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So we've started this series called Casual Fridays, where we just kind of take, however much time, usually it's about an hour, where we kind of just knock back on a Zoom call, and we have a few Ivoxy engineers on the call, and we just talk about what may be ailing you. And it can be personal, it can be technical, it can be a topic that you're banging your head against the wall at work on. But we've had a couple now, and it's been a good time. What's your thoughts on it so far, Matt?
I think it's kind of nice. One of the things I've noticed with us working remote so much is that we don't get to see everyone. So it's actually been kind of nice to be able to look at your face and chat with someone and be able to have that kind of like social aspect, even without having to leave and go anywhere,
Virtual water cooler.
Yeah, that kind of a thing.
That'd be a nice little B option for the name. We threw out virtual happy hour. That there's too much of that going on.
Yeah.
And
that's actually
and the more I attend, the less happy I become.
That's one of the ones I've noticed from working from home and having so much remote since starting working at Ivoxy is there is no water cooler. There's no drive by.
Except
just
our Slack
hang
channel
out.
called Water Cooler.
Right. That's only in the last year or so.
Yeah, and it's been like the most populated channel too.
Mm-hmm.
It's good
Mm-hmm.
to go in there. And then what we'd end up doing is having enough off work topics where we create our own channels for said topics.
Right.
And water cooler starts to dwindle, and the cycle continues. Yes, but we're going to have a link in the details in the episode description and on the blog page. So definitely check that out if you're interested. You do need to register. It's totally free, but you do need to register. This way we keep out all the riffraff that Zoom is apparently under attack from, and people jumping in calls and this and that. So that's all that's about. Another nice side note about that, we are donating $1 for every single participant every week to Bloodworks Northwest. And I think a couple of us are matching that as well.
That's what I heard.
What I didn't know, fine print, apparently that match counts Ivoxy attendees as well. So on our first one, like the entire company stuffs itself in, we had a few customers. So I'm like, yeah, I'll match it. And then, I got to, pay for the whole company head count. And okay, fine, we'll keep that going. But no,
Whoops.
it's good. It's fun. Yeah. And
it's a good cause,
it helps out. A fantastic organization, Bloodworks. Okay, so main topic of the day. We've talked about this probably a lot in terms of mentions. You think about the word cloud.
Yeah.
And the bigger words, right? And home automation comes up.
Dun, dun, dun.
Right. But and I believe it was episode 23. So it was a few months back.
It's been a minute.
We went into it. But it was mostly Mr. Cozzolino. You were just, hey, I just took control of this entire house. I have a clean slate, and what should I do?
True that.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is less that, at least today's episode, in what we're going to call, what I call, the Great Home Assistant Migration of 2020.
Ah, you did one too? Me too. Look at that.
Yeah, if I'm going to be forced to be home,
mm-hmm.
it better work for me.
Right.
And I don't want to be punching walls because it's disobeying, and then having to hit the Home Depot yet again and wait in line for my turn.
Those lines look so long, but they actually aren't because there's like a third of the number of people in it.
When is that ever the case, by the way?
The
line's looking. Are you talking about the line to get in?
I'm talking about like you drive by Home Depot and you see this line that's like wrapped around the building or Costco or whatever, right? And it's
when
like
is that ever quick?
And it's the thing I've noticed is it's like, holy crap! I look at this line and it's around the building, and normally around the building takes 2 hours to get in.
Agree.
But now there's like a third of the people in that distance of line. So
Right.
it's kind of deceiving.
That's I didn't think about that. They are still moving them. It
Mhm.
seems pretty quickly because I can certainly go into Home Depot and take an entire hour. So it feels
Right.
like the egress wouldn't be as quick, but you're right. It's a
It's
less dense
deceptive.
line.
Yeah.
Good thought. Good thought. Yes. Well. Okay. So I'll quickly lead up to why we got here. If you remember from a previous episode, I'm a HomeKit user, and that means that Apple's main home app that comes on every iDevice or third-party apps, it just uses its protocol.
Hmm. It's all Wi-Fi too, right?
It is all Wi-Fi, correct? And it's all Wi-Fi, but it also it can talk to Bluetooth low energy devices and Bluetooth devices too, with a home hub, right? And we talked about Apple TVs and HomePods and
I've seen a lot of stuff
iPads.
like that where it's here's this switch, here's this set of blinds, here's this whatever, and buy our hub to go with it.
So the
That's a
Apple
sprawl.
Hub,
Mm-hmm.
the Apple Hub is optional.
Mm-hmm.
The Apple Hub is either an Apple TV, a HomePod, their speaker, or an iPad that's just always home on Wi-Fi, and it doesn't need to stay there. What if you take it away? What won't happen is automations, right? Because that's
Okay.
where where's the brain?
Some CPU's got to run this cron job.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's fairly unobtrusive, that kind of thing. And those hubs can also talk Bluetooth. That's the physical component of it, right?
Okay.
Protocol can't reach out to radio unless
Right.
it's on an actual device.
Right.
So I've been using that, and I am the type of person where it's weird. Being in IT, you'd think I want to tinker. And one of my big shots against Android is I don't care about Microsoft Plus 98 custom fonts anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I just want basic functions to work. I want to play with big boy toys. My phone, just work. Let me
needs
type.
to be a phone.
Don't autocorrect.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that point, I will sacrifice some customizability, right,
Mm-hmm.
for polish,
Okay.
for stability, because at the end of the day, I just want things to work, and
Right.
so I have to be realistic, right? It can't be you've cobbled this together with shoestring and gum, and it's just going to be rock solid, because
Right.
that's really
There's
you
a
know.
lot of care and feeding that goes into maintaining a thing, actually. Whatever it is, right?
Right. And with HomeKit, it is objectively restricted.
Mhm.
It's limited in things. Now they've extended it out with their Shortcuts app, which is, it's a good step in the right direction. But by and large, the Home app and the protocol itself, well, not the protocol itself, but the automation wrapped around it is somewhat limited. But I'm willing to give that up because it just works. It just works, and that is the Apple mantra. And okay, fine. Well, then it better just work.
All the time, right? You want that
Yes.
that 5 nines, right? 5 nines
And the
for your life.
troubleshooting, like what do we do for a living, Matt? We troubleshoot,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so I'm okay troubleshooting, but when you ever have to open a ticket with Apple and it's sign out of iCloud with every single device and sign back in, well, your phone's never the same. I still have weird caller ID issues and picture stuff and kind of like because I signed out on everything.
Mhm.
But what happened was there are certain scenes that come built in, like goodnight.
Okay.
Right? So you say goodnight, and you can tie lights to it, your door locked, this and that. That scene was corrupt.
How do you mean corrupt? What does corrupt mean?
Well, I could not remove or add components to it,
Okay.
and it wasn't operating right. It wasn't triggering.
Okay.
So I was trying to rebuild this built-in scene because I'm so conditioned to saying, hey, so-and-so, good night,
Mhm.
as a thing. I'm not going to create I was creating additional phrases like nighttime
Mhm.
or whatever and try to retrain myself. Ultimately, the scenes were borked. And
Okay.
the only, there's no recourse. There's no tinkering. I can't dive into what these scenes are. The recourse is delete the Apple Home. Delete the whole home set.
Mhm.
So I had to go around to every light switch, pull the Gangbox fascia plates off, look at the code on every single light switch. And I got a 6-ganger, so that's 12 screws.
Yeah.
12 slotted screws.
Right. Those are fun.
So I got to the point where I'm saying I have to invest some significant time rebuilding it all.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to do that strictly on Apple Home?
And so what'd you come up with?
No.
No? Uh-oh. What do we got now?
Well, did you say you're doing Home Assistant also?
I did. That was my change. So when the roommate moved out and left all of the gear behind, I reset everything, reset the smart home hub, and rejoined all of my devices to that. Just recently, I bought a Z Stick Gen 5. So it's a Z Wave USB stick that plugs
And
into.
that's just like a 900 megahertz radio frequency, which I think is brilliant to
Right.
reuse that spectrum.
Right. So pretty much everything's Z Wave. So I just got that a couple of weeks ago, last week or so. So like this week, every now and then, I went and redid all the light switches, and I don't have that many, but I redid all the light switches and connected them up
You
to
will.
the Home Assistant now, running on the Pi in the garage.
Okay, I was curious about that because so you're running it on the Pi, which is apparently how when you go and read how do I install Home Assistant, almost all guides are assuming that you're taking an old spare Pi
Mm-hmm.
and running this thing on it,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm certainly in the minority here, but I have a proper home lab environment with a virtual hypervisor virtual
Mhm.
environment. I want to run it in a VM,
Mhm.
and it's not so straightforward there. A lot of the guides are referencing scripts that 404 now.
It took me a minute with the Home Assistant piece because they've got has.io or Hasio.
Yes.
Is like the whole OS, so you can download that as an image and install it on an SD card and just run that. I've actually got mine running as a container on the regular Ubuntu build on the Pi. So for a minute
I'm using this Supervisor D install process, which does exactly that.
Okay.
It spins up I've got about 6 or 7 containers, and it contains the Hasio
Mm-hmm.
store. So
Mhm.
that's almost like the corporate entity of it or whatever. It's that bigger picture.
Right.
And Home Assistant is a piece of that.
Right.
But installing it the way I did, and you probably got this too, there's also now an add-on store. I don't believe it's pay for, but it's basically like a repository
Okay.
area
So
where you can add plugins.
I want this
add
plugin or
integrations,
something.
they call
Yeah.
them.
Okay.
Yep, which is cool because for me, Home Assistant, while it can be everything, it can be your hub, your automation trigger, your scene setting, your interface with your smart home.
Mhm.
For me, I like it to be a state controller.
Mhm.
So it's where all my entities are stored, all my integrations. It can actually act as a HomeKit controller and then turn around and blast that HomeKit back out. And from my Apple Home app, I can say, oh, add my Home Assistant hub, and that you can still see all my devices.
It shows up as a HomeKit device to Apple.
Yes, it
Okay.
does. So it
Okay.
turns it back around, and this way, wife acceptance factor, which is a very important thing. And let me tell you something, husband acceptance factor
Oh,
too
yeah.
at
Oh,
this
yeah.
point in my life. So that still all works nicely. But what are we doing? Home automation.
That's right. Yeah. That was actually one of the questions. One of the overall questions I had is like, what scenes, what stuff, how do I set stuff? What do I want to set up?
It's
right?
so much. I can't believe I'm so enthusiastic about this.
Mhm.
It's so exciting. You can do it in Home Assistant with YAML files,
Mhm.
which are just big, verbose, sloppy, non-structured looking. Sorry. Oh, you got to have 2 spaces at the beginning of that line, not a tab, etc., etc. But they're XML, JSON. It's just another type of markup language. Actually, YAML is yet another markup language.
Yep.
You can do automations that way. Fine, great. I've mentioned it before. I know I have, but I can't remember when. I'm using an add-on called Node-RED.
Node-RED. Yes.
And Node-RED, I mean, I'm probably going to butcher this explanation of it, but it is a node and wire based visual programming tool.
Okay.
Ultimately, it's backed with JavaScript. So if you can code in JavaScript or hack your way through it with JavaScript, you can use it. And then they've got what's called nodes. And so there's a big like repository of community contributed nodes. There are nodes for Home Assistant, obviously, that come out of the box if you install it through the Home Assistant add-on thing. But what it basically does is it can be a listener. It can trigger on actions. It can pull on a scheduled basis with a node, and then it's either got inputs or it's got like a time start, like 6 in the morning, something happens.
Okay.
And then it's got an output. that basically says what happens next. Oh, well, I'm going to check the weather if it's raining. Okay, what if it is? Then wire yourself to that node. Okay, then what happens if it's raining? Then this, and check if the light is on. If the light is on, turn it off or whatever.
Okay.
And you can do that, and you can loop, and all
So-
kinds of nodes that flesh out functionality are there.
So it gives you more than if state do thing. It gives you a
Oh,
little. It gives you
yes.
more. It gives you if state do a thing, but then check this other bit, and then check this other thing, and kind of gives you an actual kind of scripting environment to do some more with it than that. Okay.
It's
Okay.
all very verbose, and you can visualize it. It's literally a graph paper whiteboard interface,
Mhm.
and you're dragging nodes and dragging wires between them to follow the workflow. At any point, you can drop a debug node in there to output what the current message, the payload is, so
When-
you see what it's seeing.
When we God, years ago, when I was taking some random college classes and we were talking about object oriented programming, this is what I assumed we were gonna get, is something like this, where it's like, here, I want this thing, and I'm
Not
gonna
exactly.
drag it over to that.
That's a good
Object
point, though,
oriented,
because-
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will talk you through a couple of the cooler ones. And some of this I've ripped off, like, because what people do is they share that there's JSON,
hmm
which is just like, here's a workflow, and I
Mhm.
paste this string and it drops it all in there, and then I can modify each node to line up with my environment.
Okay.
But this hooks in with Home Assistant, and this is the only one I ripped off, but it's great. I have like 7 or 8 hue bulbs throughout the house. They're mostly lamps,
hmm
and my pendant lights hanging above my island in my kitchen.
Okay.
Everything else is can light built in that's on a dimmer.
On a switch.
But those hue bulbs can do color, right?
Right.
I have a circadian lighting pattern
Yeah.
automation. It runs basically every minute.
hmm
It knows my location based on GPS coordinates, so it knows the position of the sun for this location for the time of the day it is.
Okay.
Every minute, it kicks itself, and it basically says, okay, where's the sun now? It then calculates what the color temperature of the sun is in this location at this time.
Does it account for
To-
clouds and such?
That's a fantastic idea, but I'm guessing no.
Okay. So it's just
guessing
it's
no.
just this should be here in the sky and
Right.
right. Okay.
Right. It then converts that to a Kelvin number,
Mhm.
because hue bulbs can take Kelvin. It can also do RGB if the bulb is RGB.
Right.
And then updates all of my lights that are on to that color at that time of day. So it's nice and clean white right now. Well, I mean, I can see the logs that it's changing every minute.
hmm
You know, it's very imperceptible, but it moves eventually to warmer at night. So theoretically, I should sleep better because the lights around are more in rhythm with
There you go.
the circadian cycle. So that is a cool one that I really like.
There you go. You mentioned that you've got some lights hooked up to your Plex system as well.
This is a fun one.
That one actually has me kind of like, I mentioned that to Devin, and she goes, "Whoa, wait a sec, that's actually kind of cool." I said we could set it up to pause and play and turn the lights on. She goes, "Oh, really?" So I might have some buy-in on that.
So basically, there's a let's see, how do I have it? Okay, so it's a. Are you familiar with MQTT or Mosquito?
I know I've seen it. I know I've heard it. I haven't used it.
It's a message protocol transport. It
Okay.
basically consider it public access channels. You set up, there's a server, and you can broadcast to a channel, or you can listen to a channel.
Mm-hmm.
So you tune into a radio station.
Okay.
If somebody bleeps, you hear it, and then
Mhm.
you can act on it. Or you can turn around to a certain station and transmit and push to it, and anybody listening can hear it and act on it.
Okay.
So it's a lightweight, transport protocol. That's a really basic way of explaining it. But I have one of those. It's called a topic
Mm-hmm.
setup. That when somebody starts playing anything on Plex, and specifically, I use Tautuli, which is the Plex logger, kind of
Mhm.
like current status of Plex. You can do conditional stuff like only fire this if this user starts playing on this device. So I don't care about triggering this if I'm in bed with an iPad
Oh yeah.
because I'm logged in with the same user.
Because you're not
but I-
logged in. It's not the.
But I do
it's not
care
the
if I'm in
TV.
my family room
Yeah.
with my TV.
Yeah.
So Tautuli triggers a call to this topic and says, hey, someone's watching TV. Someone started playing. Well, not someone, me,
Mhm.
in my living room. Plex then, if it's play or resume, those two operations, it will then check the time of the day, and it will determine whether or not the sun has set already.
Right.
If the sun has set, it will turn on and dim my backsplash wall lights to a level that I don't like it when the whole room's black and the TV's blasting me. I like a little soft light to
eat your
do all
popcorn
that.
by.
Right. It'll also turn off the overheads in the room and in the kitchen behind me. If the island lights are on, it'll turn those off.
Okay.
Now, what the cool part is, if they were on, it will remember that they turned them on, that they turned them off, that they were on. So when I either pause or stop, the wall backsplash lights will get brighter. They come up.
Everything goes back to where it was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's cool.
Yep. So that's a fun one.
Okay.
I just did a slider. We have a kitchen slider that we let the dog out the back.
Right.
I have it turning the light on the back porch on when the slider opens.
Do you have a door sensor on those?
An Eve window and door sensor.
Okay. So it's got the magnet
Not bad.
on it. And...
$25-$30. It's not terrible.
Yeah.
That's one of those Bluetooth low energy devices.
Okay.
That I don't do. And then basically, so this went through the wife, beta test, rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
She says, "What if I want to step out there and close the door behind me? I don't want the light shutting off on me." Not fair. What if it's wintertime? You open the door, let her out, close it. Yeah. So I have it on a 5-minute timer now, where once that door opens, 5-minute timer starts.
Okay.
And then if basically at the end of the 5 minutes, if the door is still open, it resets the timer and just loops that way.
Okay.
And eventually will shut off if the door remains closed for 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a couple of things that I'm doing, which is really cool.
That's cool. I just, I think we had talked a little bit. I swapped a couple of the inside light switches for dimmable Z-Wave switches. And that made a huge difference and kind of rekindled my excitement, because before that it was the front porch and the back porch. And I had a little outlet floating around. So there wasn't a whole lot that I was doing. I'm like, okay, cool, the lights are on when I get home, or not, or whatever,
Yep.
right? So now I'm able to do the same kind of thing. I don't have everything built into it, like all of the automation, but I can solve that problem of the last person to sit down on the couch forgot to turn the lights off before we hit play, right?
Yep.
So it's there's the light bulb glare and the TV, and now we can solve that.
So getting even sicker about this, sick, where there's automations that's triggered based on actions and time and all of this. What about something a little more passive, like location? Now, I've talked about, I love the geolocation I use the Home Assistant app on iOS, which is really just an app as a web wrapper.
Right.
So it's okay. It's okay. It's not terrible.
It passes GPS location for your phone, though, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
But what I still am using right now is the Locative app.
Okay.
Which got refreshed and renewed. It's open source, it's free, and it was deprecated, but now it's back. But it basically is a geofence trigger.
Okay.
Either I'm in this zone or I'm out this zone. So it doesn't really impact battery life, and it is dead on accurate. So when I'm approaching my house, it says, "Hey, Matt's home now," and all my routines start. Basically, unlocking the door, blah blah blah. So is again nothing I just discover is like, oh, this is wonderful, drop it in. Oh, this works great, perfect. It's always a little there's that frustration.
With it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I've been toying with another open source project called Room Assistant.
Room Assistant.
So there's a lot of different ways to skin this cat, and from what I've read, a lot of reading, there's no good way. There's no great way. How do I know, Matt, if you're in your kitchen or your living room?
You'd need something to tell you that I'm in one or the other, right?
Right. And there's motion sensors that a dog could set off. There's infrared sensors that a dog could set off. There's you're not going to have a little Bluetooth low energy beacon on your person at all times.
Right.
You're just not.
Right.
Chances are you're going to have Naked Tuesdays, and you just have nowhere to put the Bluetooth beacon.
True, probably.
So with that, how do you, so this room assistant, it can use cameras, it can use infrared sensors, it can use classic Bluetooth or BLE.
You got it plugged into like some facial recognition so it can see your. No.
No, I can't imagine. Yeah, yeah. It is a Bluetooth beacon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can run it on anything, but what I chose to do was these little Raspberry Pi Zero Ws.
Okay.
They're about the size of a pack of gum, maybe a little wider. I mean the case is probably an inch wide and 2.5 inches long, and probably half an inch thick.
That's almost the size of like a Arduino, right?
Yeah,
It's about that.
definitely think that. Yep. It's got built-in Wi-Fi and built-in Bluetooth, which I thought was brilliant, right? Because as long as I have power, I can stick these in the drawer somewhere and be fine. No, because the Wi-Fi it runs on is 2.4 gigahertz. What frequency range does Bluetooth operate on? So that thing was pissed because you had two radios both blasting, at the same time. It just doesn't work well. So I ordered they were cheap, but they were little. It's called OTC. OTB, some kind of cable standard that is used with Android a lot, I guess. But it's basically micro USB to a device or whatever. And so basically it was a 10100 network adapter that plugs into micro USB port on the Pi. So I've wired them in, so the radio is only being used for Bluetooth beacons.
Okay.
On the back end, this room assistant thing clusters with other room assistants that have names like I'm kitchen, I'm office, I'm bedroom.
Okay.
And they talk, and they basically measure. And I tell them what Bluetooth MAC addresses I care about. And then they basically start reporting out of the box at 6 seconds, and they start talking to each other every 6 seconds. They hit a beacon. They say, "This is the RSSI I get from this MAC address," and they all share.
Here's what I hear. Okay.
And whoever's closest, and there's an algorithm where you can customize the number of cycles you want to do before you consider data stale. Like you don't want your lights flipping off the second you leave the room. The problem is you want them coming on as soon as possible when you walk in the room. So you want it to be Harry Trigger, but you don't. So that's the rub. But overall, the idea is put as many of these things around the house as possible to kind of cover it. And then it uses not triangulation, but signal strength, smarts to
like
say
mesh learning kind of a thing.
He's closest to me. Where I am, he probably is. And it's got my watch, which is a good beacon actually, because if I'm awake, I'm probably wearing.
You're probably wearing your watch. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so
and my phone and my wife's phone.
Right.
And so we've been playing with that. So think of, hey, it's after 6 o'clock in the evening. You and your girlfriend have both sat down with your phones on the couch. It sees you both on the couch. You just turn on the TV. Chances are you might want to have the lights dim. Things like that. There's
some. Yeah, that is.
Until they're not.
Until they're not. I don't know. It's a lot of time. So you use the 0 Ws you distributed those around the house. You still.
The only bummer there is the power brick is bigger than the W.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure I could find something small. It's a 5-volt, 2500 milliamp.
It's
so
USB,
it's kind of a unique. It is. It's micro USB, just like
right. So pretty much any USB charger should work for it.
Can it put out 2.5 amps? A lot of them are a lot crappier than that, I think.
Well, now that you say that, I think I might be in the minority in that I actually read the fine print on the bottom of the USB chargers that I get, and if I don't get one that's 2.5 amps or actually decent, it gets chucked. Right.
Okay.
So for me, it's a yes.
I guess what makes this at least the package I order, and I guess when you order a Pi, it probably doesn't even come with a power supply. So I ordered one that came with all the accoutrement, which was cool because it was the Pi and this power supply. The thing that makes the power supply bulky is it's got a switch in line where I can actually turn it off. So that adds some bulk. And then it came with the case and it comes with a little ribbon if I wanted to extend it out, and it comes with a pin-out riser. And it was $26.
That's not bad.
Not bad at all. So the Pis are super affordable. I think they're like $15 depending on where you buy them, just by themselves.
That looks like it's got HDMI out on it also.
It has HDMI mini, and it comes with a dongle to make it regular.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a cool device.
That's.
I can see the.
I don't know what I'd use it for. I think it's cool. I think it's neat, but I don't know what I'd actually do with it.
Put one in every room, but you need a network drop. That's the bummer.
That's what you're saying is you wired the Ethernet in. Right.
If you want to use Bluetooth as a means of scanning, then yeah, I would say the Wi-Fi application is almost useless. You can't do it. Now, if you're using infrared sensors, or it's room-assistant.io if you want to go there. If you want to use like a camera or an infrared sensor, that's not, that's a local piece of hardware. It's not beaconing on a spectrum. So wireless would be just fine there. So you put one of those little mini camera modules on there.
Yeah.
The cost is going to go up a bit.
Not bad.
But yeah, I mean that could be one way to do it.
That's cool. So that's actually one of the things I notice, and kind of my takeaway, my mental model for how to put this together is I'm taking the approach of defining the scenes, defining the everything I can on Home Assistant, and creating a package for that, and handing that whole package to, for example, Google to trigger. So I don't have to go into Google and say, these 4 lights are all bound together to get flipped on the switch. I can say, when I say keyword, trigger this one event, and then I build all the smarts in the Home Assistant piece. That's one of the things I've found and triggered. The other one, or found and kind of wrapped into my design process. The other kind of question is like the play pause for Plex. I love that. That's a great idea. I'll probably start.
Well, and then Plex, if you're a Plex Pass subscriber, supports webhooks, which is great.
Right. So doing that kind of automation, I was struggling before I got these extra couple of switches with going like, okay, cool, I can turn the porch lights on. That's friggin' awesome. And just like all of the momentum, all of the excitement was like, nah. Because it's the porch lights. Who cares about the porch lights?
Right.
The only time I care about those is when I'm on my way home and it's dark. Right?
Yep.
So that was the thing I noticed. The biggest selling point, and the reason I made the switch from the Smart Things to the Z-Wave stick on the Pi for Home Assistant was because I could connect and control everything. The minute I discovered I could type in some text and have it play across my entire Sonos system from Home Assistant, I was like, sold. I can't.
Yeah.
I may be able to, but I can't do that on Smart Things.
Can I give you a tip? I don't know how you're doing it with Google now, but that is one of the things where we can all malign our voice assistants, and I will continue to do so on Siri. But ultimately, I do use it, set a timer. This doesn't really involve that, but things like that, or turn on the island lights. So how am I going to do that when Home Assistant is the brains? Well, that is why there's 2 things. One, it turns around and it basically advertises those same devices. Instead of pairing them with Apple Home when I get a new device like a Switch, I pair them with Home Assistant.
Right.
And then Home Assistant turns around. It's already paired with Siri because Siri can take external bridges.
And then it just sees that device show up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it shows up. But what I also have done in the more trickier things, like that Eve Home Assistant, or that Eve Bluetooth slider sensor, it uses Bluetooth Low Energy exclusively.
Okay.
That's great. How does Home Assistant talk to that? It doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't see it.
Right.
So I have it added to Apple Home, right?
Okay.
But then, and as few as possible, right? But I have an automation in Apple Home. What I've done is I've created a Boolean switch in Home Assistant that basically is a virtual representation of that Eve sensor. And I have an automation in Apple Home that says when that sensor triggers, set that virtual switch to on. And now I have an equivalent object in Home Assistant that represents that opener.
Mhm.
And then when it closes, set the switch to off.
Okay.
So now I can act on that. And so my good night scene in Apple, I say, hey, good night.
Mhm.
Well, it's not tied to anything anymore because everything is over in, I'm not setting up I don't want to set up automations in Apple Home is my point. I could
Right.
go through and pick all
Right.
my devices.
I think that's what we're coming to. The single
Yep,
item
instead-
turn this light to this setting, that makes sense because you can call it out. But if you've got a play or a bunch of things that you want to have happen.
So now all I do is have a home automation that says when I say goodnight, turn on that virtual goodnight switch
Okay.
that I've created in Home Assistant. And on that side, when that triggers, Node Red
Now you
looks
can
for
do
the
all
state
your
of that
stuff.
switch consistently.
Right.
And it knows when it changes. And when it changes, it goes ahead and kicks my automation off. And
Okay.
it logs it. It logs it to text. It can log to Slack if I want it to. Home Assistant's got a pretty cool logbook
Mm-hmm.
that basically shows in a reverse chronological order what's happened in my house over the last 3 days, which I love. That kind of stuff, if Apple added that, hey, this light changed based on this. Why did it change? I might go back. I mean, no, but I mean, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
In lieu of that kind of debugability,
Mhm.
you got to have it just work. And when
Right.
it wasn't just working, if I'm going to have to do the work and fiddle with it, I might as well fiddle with it.
If I got to open this up and look inside, give me all of the bells and whistles kind of a thing, right?
Right.
What do you use for the garage door? Because that's as I'm getting through all of the devices, I'm finding that the garage door tilt sensor is actually a smart things sensor. So this was late last night, and I just assumed it's going to have to.
When
connect.
I was manualing it up, so now I have a shop garage and a main garage. I have Chamberlain MyQ garage door openers on both of them.
Mhm.
So that's solved.
Okay.
So
the garage door knows what states it's in.
Yeah, the problem is they want you to buy another hub, right?
Right. Yet another hub.
So I said no. Without it, I am at the mercy of opening my garage door. If their cloud service goes down,
Mhm.
I lose that ability from the app
Okay.
because it does call an API that does that. But obviously the buttons still work if I'm home, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Back before I had those openers, I had an old opener from like 1982.
Mhm.
I had a Pi that used the GPIO,
Mhm.
and
All you
it
gotta
also
do is connect
ran.
those two wires, right? It's just a simple
Yeah, but then
circuit,
what?
yeah.
But then here, so you're talking tilt sensor. What I did is I used a magnet.
Mhm.
So I put one static magnet bit side on the door itself,
Mhm.
and then I ran another wire down to the side of the door on the frame, where when the door was closed, the magnets would line up.
That's just like the sensor on your slider door. It's a magnet window door sensor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, what is that? What's your tilt sensor for then? Open close status,
Open
right?
close status. So the two things I don't like, and I haven't looked at it, is it says smart things on it. So my assumption is that it's got to connect to the smart things hub, which I haven't looked at. Like I said, late last night.
That would make sense.
Right, makes sense. But then it's also got a CR 2032 battery in it.
Yeah.
So eventually I'm going to have to go change that battery and just stuck to the door
Yeah,
somewhere.
but if it's Bluetooth Low Energy, which I probably is, those batteries last a good long time. If it was Wi-Fi, that battery would be done in a day flat.
Mhm.
Apparently, BLE is very, very efficient.
Yeah, and I believe that, but it's so after looking at that, the question is, do I want to fiddle with this? Should I just consider a new one, right? That whole bit.
I have an August door lock that uses AA batteries. Big pain, like one of my biggest gripe about it. Right? I would rather drape a 12-foot USB cord across the thing three times a year and charge it than do bad. But anyway, I added it to Home Assistant.
Shows you the battery status.
And I can see the battery.
Nice.
So I can have it tell me,
go change the batteries.
You got 10% left. Just might as well swap them. So I'm guessing you might be able to. And same with the Eve sensors, by the way. Those things last forever, like a year.
We'll see.
That might be an idea. I wouldn't shy away based on a battery, man. I mean, that's one big drag. Is like, how far am I away to the nearest outlet for every little smart device is not practical.
True. I mean, I'm looking at the same things, right? So we have no curtains, no blinds on the windows in the house. So there's two windows.
Naked Tuesday must really be fun for your neighbors.
Oh yeah, tons of fun. There's two windows I wanna put those up, and I'm actually looking at some of the IKEA stuff because they're way cheaper. Those like
the Trodfee?
Yes. It's just a roller blind, right? So it just rolls down. But I'm looking at like standard cellulose blinds from Home Depot or something, 100 and some odd bucks. Those IKEA ones, 100 and some odd bucks. Automated smart assistant Z-Wave compatible like $600 for a set of blinds.
Yes.
I'm like, no.
Yep. And here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough that they're that expensive, so there's not a lot of reviews out there.
Mm-hmm.
But look out if that doesn't work for you.
Right.
Because for $600, they thinking better.
Right. And so so that's the thing. It's like these blinds. I got to put batteries in them. Shit, man. I'll run a power cord for that. I can make that happen.
I can't remember the name of it, and I'm still hesitant to pull the trigger. But they make ones that have I have the blinds that are pull string and they've
got the flaps in them. Yeah.
You know they're wood. You can get them in wood or faux wood. You know slats. There you go. And they make ones that basically the blind you keep. You open up the top. You pop this thing in this motor that basically goes around the post that spins. That gives you that turn move.
Those retrofit your thing onto this, right?
Retrofit, and they've got a solar panel piece also that's on the back side that faces outside. That's all well and good. I don't know. The very front of my house is probably the most shaded, so I don't know how well that would work long term. And I'm not going to be pulling up molding and drywall to run permanent power up there.
Right. It kind of gives you.
We renovated our house 2 years ago when we bought it, and I'm resisting the urge to be like beat myself up and say you had it all wide open. You should have just run everything everywhere. And of course, my electrical bill would have, my electrician bill would have went up by 4 times. So glad I didn't do that.
I did find, so I got one more switch because the selling point. We're standing in Home Depot going, should we buy another switch? Yes, no.
Should we drop another $50?
Yeah, should we? And I was getting the no, not so much. And I said, I'll do the bedroom master light switch, the master bedroom light switch. And I saw the light bulb go on, and I saw the eyes go, Yeah. I'm like, okay, it's going in the cart.
Yeah. When we're in bed, hon, and you're half asleep, and I say, oh, we forgot the light. Can you turn it off? And she says,
F you.
You do it. No, you do it. That's all you got to put that in front of her.
So I opened the panel up just the other day, and I don't have a neutral wire.
Oh no!
It's a switched outlet, and they ran just the single 12-2 Romex over to the switch. So is that
just for that switch. Circuit, or is that typical across the board for your house?
The kitchen lights, the dining room lights, all had full power to the outlet. I assume this is because it's at the far end, the other end of the room, and it's just the one plug on the outlet that's switched.
Okay. I got lucky when we got it and we renovated a friend of mine who's also an outstanding electrician. He brand new 200 amp panel, all this, and I'm neutral. I have neutral wire all over the place. Now the Lutron ones don't need neutral, from what I understand.
No, yeah.
But I use the Leviton.
That's what I've got.
I'm very happy with those switches. And they don't look like the Jetsons. And believe it or not, I'm glad. I don't want that look.
I like the Lutron seem to do everything and maybe do it better, but there's like 16 buttons on it, and it looks like the front panel of the Enterprise or something. I might get I think I've got one, like a nice 12-inch drill bit. I might try to poke a hole into the next light switch over on the hallway light and see if I can...
Is it one of those flexi ones?
No, but I mean...
I have like a 3-foot drill bit that's...
I might have you throw that out on the porch for me. We'll see how I'm going to solve this problem.
Yeah. Retro is fun, right? Old work. Yeah. Well, we've gone probably longer than almost any other episode, and I wish we didn't have to cut it off because I'm really having fun here, and I could keep going.
Me too.
There's a lot more that I've been doing with the automation, the room assistant stuff. Home away, basically. I just like the Node-RED things that you can do more than just if A, then B. It's very conditional, and there are a lot of different functions you can tie into it. I love that normally, Apple uses, their automations, they use sunset, so that moves as the calendar goes. But you can tie it together, and you can say, hey, if it's also colder outside than normal for this time of year, let's change my thermostat schedule to a little different automatically. Or... I don't know about you. If we set our house to 70, and it's the middle of the day, and it's a nice warm day outside, like 70 degrees outside, the house at 70 feels warmer. than 70 feels on a 36-degree winter day.
It's that differential. Yeah, I hear you on that.
Even though the thermostat says the same thing on the inside. So hey, maybe if it's colder outside, I can bump it up a little bit, even though it's, you know what I mean? Like things like that. It's very intelligent when it comes to that. And again, it logs everything.
That's cool.
Hallelujah. Okay. We have to get out of here because we got to go. Yes, so definitely check out the link in the description of this episode or on our blog site. Go to datacentertherapy.com or ivoxy.com. We just kind of get a refresh on the website. So up there in the right corner, there's a blog link. Hit there for details on Casual Fridays. You'll definitely want to register. And listen, if you just jump on, enjoying some coffee or another beverage of choice,
it's Friday.
You don't have a lot to lose. And if you have some questions or you want to talk about the podcast, whatever, we will be there. If you have questions about Node-RED or home automation, hit us up, please. We would love to chat with you about it. Podcast@ivoxy.com. Give us a 5-star review on iTunes, and I can't say I'll match $1 for every 5-star review. That would be purchasing reviews, I think. So we don't want to run afoul of Apple's rules. But if you have some time and will be so kind to leave us a review, we would greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yes, Matt, thank you for joining us today. It's always good to chat with you.
Of course.
Good luck with that Google Home Assistant and Skynet and
we'll see how it works. Yeah.
Thank you for donating your everything that goes on in your house to the public cloud.
You're welcome. I'm sure everyone loves that.
And for Matt Coslino, I am Matt Yeti. Thanks for joining, everyone. Have a good one.